Hey everyone, welcome to Plants and Politics. So I want to talk about this new report that came out from Republicans about the Bidens. After Trump's impeachment, which he was impeached for withholding aid in an attempt to dig up dirt on Joe Biden in Ukraine and his family, Republican lawmakers really just picked up the ball and ran with it. And the main focus of the Republicans' investigation and dirt digging has been Joe Biden's son, Hunter. Now, I am no fan of the Bidens. Anyone who knows me knows that. Anyone who knows me knows that I do not want to have to vote for Biden. I believe that he is just another corporate shill. So understand that as I go through all of this, that's where I'm coming from. But I try to be very fair in how I look at things and parse through things with ethics, with principles, and without a partisan lens. So know up front, I have no dog in the fight on any of this. I don't come down on the Democratic side or the Republican side when it comes to Joe Biden. I'm going to call it as I see it. So I just want to put that framing up first before I dive in. But here's the deal. Hunter Biden was paid an exorbitant amount of money to sit on a board of a Ukrainian gas company called Burisma. This was while his father was vice president. That was clearly a conflict of interest. And the company obviously added him to the board for political purposes. Whether they did it to curry favor with his father or to try and affect U.S. policy in some way, who knows? But there was no reason for him to be on that board. He had no experience. It was not something he's ever studied. There was no other reason. So Republicans just released an 87-page report, and they laid out their findings of what took place with Hunter Biden and whether or not this conflict of interest did in fact impact U.S. policy and decision-making. So here's what they found. These are the top line findings. In a nutshell, first and foremost, the Obama administration was aware that this conflict of interest existed. They say in the report, quote, Hunter Biden's position on Burisma's board was problematic and did interfere in the efficient execution of policy with respect to Ukraine. Now, the reason being is that the U.S. at that time was attempting to eradicate the really unbounded, unbelievable corruption that had taken hold in Ukraine. And this was due to pro-Russia forces that had infiltrated the Ukrainian government and had taken control of the country. And the Hunter Biden conflict of interest made the U.S. appear to be hypocritical. That goes without saying. I mean, it's undeniable. But the report also lays out a potential conflict of interest and ties to the Chinese government. Now, this issue arises from a company called Rosemont Seneca that Hunter Biden formed in 2009. The company then merged with a Chinese company known as Bohai Capital. And this Bohai Capital is said to have ties to the Chinese government. So when the merger took place between Hunter Biden's company and Bohai Capital, which was in 2013, the newly formed group was renamed Bohai Harvest RST, or BHR for short. So why is this a big deal? Well, BHR was the newly formed group, the merged group, was involved in a transaction during the Obama administration. That transaction gave control of an American military application and technology company. They developed military applications, military technology. They gave control of that American company to a Chinese company with ties to the Chinese government. Obviously, another potential conflict of interest. This doesn't look good. Why are we giving American companies over to China when they are aggressive towards us, when they steal our technology, when they are trying to undermine us? That's not good. The report also mentions that many business trips that Hunter Biden took all over the globe were under the protection of the Secret Service. So every time he traveled, and it was all over the place, I mean, it was tons of countries, the Secret Service protected him. That happens with our dollars. We pay for that. And I'll get to how that's hypocritical in a little bit. But yeah, I have a problem with that. Also found in the report is information regarding millions of dollars that Hunter Biden received from various questionable sources, such as the wife of the former mayor of Moscow and Chinese nationals that are linked to the communist regime that controls China. There are also more salacious details about payments that Hunter Biden allegedly made to women from Russia and other Eastern European countries who, as they put it in the report, quote, appear to be linked to an Eastern European prostitution or human trafficking ring. But the report also states that they were unable to determine if or how Hunter Biden's relationships and positions on the Burisma board actually impacted U.S. policy. And that's really the bottom line. Was any of this acceptable? Hell no. Was it illegal? Some of it might be, but the majority of it isn't. It's just unethical. And that's the real problem that we have in this country. Our existing laws allow people to take advantage of their last name, of their proximity to people of power, of their positions of power, and to leverage it to make millions or sometimes even billions of dollars. But here's my problem with this very partisan report. First of all, it was co-written by Ron Johnson, Senator Ron Johnson. Why is that important? Well, Ron Johnson flew to Russia on the 4th of July, no less, to talk with Russia about their interference in the 2016 election. We all knew what happened. There was no reason for him to take that trip. And he wasn't the only one. A bunch of Republican lawmakers went with him that day. And when he got back, he made it very clear that he took the word of the Russian nationals over that of our intelligence community. And he made a very concerted effort to try and downplay Russia's part in trying to swing our elections to Trump. And it is undeniable what they attempted to do before the 2016 election. And this guy is out there pushing their false narrative. And he's the one who's looking into this and talking about corruption. Give me a break. The other thing I have an issue with is that this report is just loaded with hypocrisy. Given the fact that Trump has done nothing but profit off of the presidency since he took office, and his children have also literally inked multi-million-dollar deals and received Chinese trademarks and been paid tons of money to speak at events over the past 4 years simply because of their last name. So really, come on. The other issue I have with it is that they continue to push this false narrative. And remember, I said I am not a Biden fan, but I am honest about things. They keep pushing this false narrative that Biden threatened to withhold aid to Ukraine unless they ousted their then prosecutor, Viktor Shokin. Yeah, the guy was corrupt as all hell. He was the reason that corrupt companies like Burisma were getting away with murder. Not literal murder, but illegal activity. His firing made it more likely that Burisma would actually be investigated. As long as he was there, he was going to block those types of things. So by getting rid of Shokin, Joe Biden was actually making Burisma more of a target. The other issue I have is that if they're going to bring up illegal activity in Ukraine and they're so concerned about corruption in Ukraine, why didn't they give a damn about Trump hiring political hitman Paul Manafort? Paul Manafort, as you may know, was Trump's former campaign manager. And he allegedly worked with pro-Russian forces in Ukraine to not only stage a coup and help to put Russia in control of Ukraine, but he also took part and, as some people have put it, manipulated and contrived the idea to slaughter nearly 100 anti-Putin protesters in a public square in Ukraine. He was the one who manufactured that, who literally made it happen. Really? But we're going to ignore that, right? They were totally okay with Manafort. And then the other thing is that why now? They've had more than a decade, well over a decade, to look into any of this. If this was such a big deal and it so bothered them, it was so wrong, so inappropriate, why? Why now? It's so obviously a political hit job and their desperate attempt to tip the scales to favor Trump. Because they know for a fact that he can't win without cheating or playing dirty. Republicans in general can't win in this country without cheating or playing dirty because the country is by far more democratic and more progressive and leans to the left. It is not a center-right country, as they would have you believe. They are not the silent majority. They are very much the very loud minority. And unfortunately, they've been able to control this country for far too long. In the last 30 years, they have only won the popular vote one time. Once in 30 years. That's called a clue, people. The only way they win presidential elections is because of our archaic laws with the Electoral College, which needs to be abolished, that makes my vote in California worthless compared to someone in the middle of the country, and the fact that they use dirty tricks. They redistrict areas so that it favors their candidates. They quash voting by disenfranchising voters, by taking people off the voter rolls illegally. It's a joke. They would never win if they didn't pull any of that crap. And I find it hilarious that in the report, they cite the Office of Government Ethics. And they talk about the appearance of impropriety and how even the appearance of a conflict of interest is inappropriate. Seriously? I'm sorry, but last I checked, you have nepotism Barbie and Ken working in the White House with absolutely zero experience. They literally go on TV and talk about their products and don't get in trouble for it, even though that's a violation of the law. All the while they're grifting off the American people and using their positions to increase their net worth. But you're going to lecture about the appearance of a conflict of interest and impropriety. Give me a freaking break. And I find it doubly hilarious that they cite Hunter Biden's activities as something that could have undermined the United States' moral standing against corruption. Are you serious? Your political party, the Republican Party, literally has the most corrupt person sitting in the White House as we speak. A man who has spent his entire life acting like a mafia king and using his money and power to screw over anyone and everyone who came into contact with him. And now he's doing the same thing as president. Seriously, Republicans, you have zero moral authority and room to speak about how the U.S. appearing to be less than ethical and moral may undermine our position in the world. Yeah, just sit down. You have absolutely no right to talk about corruption after the bullshit that Trump has pulled over the past 4 years and that the Republican lawmakers have gone along with. That ship sailed 4 years ago when you chose to nominate and elect a sociopath and crime boss as your president. So just really zip it.
When a problem comes along, you must zip it. Zip it good.
So, okay. So anyway, guys, yeah. So that's the good, the bad, the ugly, and that's where we're at. And them talking about Hunter Biden paying women who appear to be part of a prostitution or human trafficking ring. I mean, yeah, that's horrific. That's egregious. But then they ignore the fact that Trump was such good friends with the ultimate in human trafficking, Jeffrey Epstein, and how they partied together, how he spoke so kindly of Epstein, how he was literally accused by one of Epstein's alleged victims of beating and raping her when she was 13. I mean, really? Do we really want to go into prostitution and human trafficking when you literally have the guy leading your party who has been accused of sexual assault by about 50 women at this point, including 3 rapes? Yeah, the hypocrisy is just rich, really, really rich. And at the end of the day, as they admitted in their report, it didn't affect U.S. policy. So that's the most important piece. That's really what most of us should care about, whether or not it affected our agreements, our decisions, and how we live and what we are and aren't allowed to do, what we do and don't have. As always, guys, like, share, subscribe, and as always, take care. Thanks for listening to Plants and Politics. The only way we can take our country and power back is to spread the truth and build an army. So remember to like, follow, subscribe, and share on Facebook, YouTube, and wherever you listen to your podcasts. Thanks again.